Hello everybody, my name is CulBlu and I'm bringing you all this video of me playing a board game, and today I am jumping in to kind of do a review, my official review of John Company. I just got done doing a solo playthrough. As you all know, I play a lot of solo board games here on my channel here. But yeah, I just got done doing a solo playthrough. I've played maybe three-ish games of John Company. And I say three-ish because I think all the games I've played so far have never made it to a full game. Not because we lost or anything, but because we didn't get there. Anyway, but before we get into the super details, John Company, for those who don't know, is a pretty sprawling game. It's a good way to think of it as a pseudo co-op slash not co-op game. You're essentially up to six players playing as one company, or one character, or John Company, one company, and you're trying to keep the company afloat, but also you're trying to make yourself rich and give yourself profits and everything. Basically, capitalism in the board game. It covers a very awful topic in my opinion, but it does it in a respectful and a way that kind of really makes you critically think about the topic of what you're talking about or what you're playing on. And the whole point of the game, or the whole joy I get out of the game, I should say, is just from just kind of thinking critically about what the game's letting you do, what your actions mean. You know, if you're the commander of the army and you're doing an invasion, or you're sending the army over to kind of take over Bombay, for instance, this is kind of thinking the implications of how that affects people, and like historically, what does that mean? You know, hey, we got a whole bunch of money from it, but yeah, but you destroyed this big tower. It's a cool like thing. It's me, especially being as nerdy on history as I am, at least casually speaking. This game is full of a lot of cool little nuggets like that. But with that said, I do want to go ahead and just go over the review. In general, I do not like this game as a solo game. I feel like it's a lot of work, a lot of input work required for me to actually get through a full game. If it was a situation to where I had like a month off of work or something and had nothing to do but just play this game, I feel like this will be the go-to game along with a game like Mage Knight. But also, just to bring up Mage Knight as another example, I know Mage Knight is a regarded and revered game for solo board gaming, but I specifically avoid Mage Knight because it feels like there's too much input for me to actually get things going. So take this entire review with a grain of salt. I would not necessarily say that John Company rises to the same breadth of Mage Knight, not by any stretch of the imagination. John Company is very much contained with its own system. It has a lot of cool things. But to me, John Company's fun comes from the interaction with players. And I think the player interactivity, that the dynamic of, you know, hey, I'm the chairman, and I really need to, I'm the one who gets to give out the money, so I'm going to direct you around. Whereas meanwhile, the manager of shipping is also important because they move writers around, they move other people around on the board. So the chairman's trying to, you know, throw their weight around saying, I'm going to make you do this because I say so, I'm the chairman. And meanwhile, the person who seems like they're not that big of a position, they can say, oh, okay, well, if you screw me over here, then I'm just going to move your relative from this place that's advantageous to you to somewhere else. And you got a whole bunch of wheeling and dealing, like backstabbing that happens like that. It's pretty neat. I like it with people. Meaning that when I play solo, the bot does a fantastic job of making sure that you kind of stay on your toes. It does a great job of making sure that you're not just predicting what the bot's going to do, and I adore it for that. That said, that requires a lot of input, at least from my perspective, on trying to get the bot to do those things and kind of behave properly. And then also there's occasionally where we get rules checks. I mean, the rulebook does a fair job. I say fair, I wouldn't say like great or fantastic, but it's a fair job of covering up some of the questions that you might have with the bot and its interactions. And the bot has its own little booklet. There's a whole bunch going on that I think is pretty neat. But that said, this game for me like works really well, like a well-oiled engine, especially once you have a group, gamer group. Maybe you play with them like 2 or 3 times the same game, and you know, people are kind of aware of what the mechanics are, know the importance of each position, know the strengths and weaknesses, and then you get that wheeling and dealing going, and people just kind of making those deals, you know, backstabbing and trading cards, and like that to me is the fun part of this game. So unfortunately, I appreciate the social part of this game, which means that playing it solo is not necessarily up my alley. Especially considering that I finally gotten to the stage to where I have a assistant sheet, which let me get up here. Which a huge shout out to the Board Game Geek person who posted this. I don't remember your name. I don't remember who it was. I'll post it in the description of the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube. But yeah, this crisis sheet is top tier. Like I'm at the point where I don't even care if this is actually correct. This is significantly easier for me to approach than it is for me to kind of remember, okay, there's a crisis and it's inside of the company location, so it's not a crisis, it's a rebellion. and the rebellion is against invaders, and the invaders level is this plus this, and I have to roll this and do that, and this is a foreign invasion. Like it makes it a lot simpler. Well, I guess it makes it to where it's more streamlined. Let me say it's more streamlined, and that's through flowchart. If you just put a little flowchart saying, okay, if this then that, like that, I can follow that. And then you can kind of see the game play along, and it tells a cool story, and I love the story it tells, especially considering my game that I went through. Without spoiling too much about what happened in it, there were some very unfortunate early turns. Like, it was just a very rough start, and yet somehow, some way, we managed to stay afloat a little bit, and then somehow, some way, we managed to stay afloat again, and then we just kept doing that, and just like by the skin of our teeth, our company was just kind of treading along. So that goes a long way to say that this is this, which is the India Invasion deck, or the Events in India deck specifically. This deck is very annoying. It is very intimidating, and it's very hard to follow. Those are the words that I would use for it. When deployed and when functioning appropriately, it adds so much to the game, and I appreciate that a lot. But I do want to acknowledge, as explicitly as possible, that this deck is very obtuse. It's very obtuse, it's very unapproachable, it's very hard to kind of wrap your brain around. And this chart, things like this chart, supplements like this chart helps out a lot. And I'm so glad I found this, because, like I said, I see the beauty and the genius in the Events in India deck. It's just, I kind of wish there was like more specific about, you know, okay, when you see Resolve Crisis, then that means you do the elephant, and the elephant's over here doing this, and it's like, okay, cool. This looks nice, but maybe it'll be nice if it was more readable. And also I understand that this was done because of modularity. So like when you have this show up, this is not saying do it anywhere. This is saying do it in this location. And or if you do this, it's not saying do it anywhere, it's saying resolve a crisis in Punjab. Or sorry, resolve a crisis what the elephant is, and if there's like no other place in Punjab. And then for here, do turmoil in Bombay. So it kind of keeps it nice and varied, and you can shuffle the deck and play along for a long time before you start seeing repeats of stuff. So that's nice. It's just, I don't know if the trade-off for modularity and like variety was really worth it for the scantness of details. Call it however you want. At any rate, the main point I'm trying to bring up though is that, yeah, that's one of the few pieces that kind of makes it a little bit difficult to approach this in general as a multiplayer game. But then as a solo game, this is the part where I bring out the Crown book, if I can find it. Oh, there it is. The Crown Handbook. And the Crown Handbook is pretty neat. It does a lot of cool stuff, and like it's really fun. But once you kind of figure out how to follow it, but I just want to emphasize that this is a lot to kind of follow. And essentially every round you go through your turn. Whenever it's the bot's turn, you basically have to go to a lookup table and look up some stuff. Some people are really into that. Some people really love that. I'm a fan of being able to have less lookup things needed. I'm not afraid to use them if I need to kind of play a game and work through a game. I've played complex games all the time, but if there was some kind of way to streamline this to where the decision making was either just like a simple card flip, something like Star Wars: The Outer Rim, or maybe it was just like a known set of priorities, something like Imperium: The Contention, that would be great. That would be nice. To be fair though, this adds enough variety to it to where I feel like I can play the bot maybe 10-15 times and not get the same feeling game. It won't be too samey. I'll probably have the same have a nice little back and forth tug of war with the bot. So I feel like this book is well designed and the bot is well designed. It's just, like I said, the amount of input required for me to make it work properly, it feels like it's more than I'm willing to invest in a solo game, to where not only is the bot doing nearly everything it can to make sure that I have a bad time, but I also have to play the game like normal, and then play the game to keep the company alive, and then also take care of the bot. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. At any rate, playing this game with people though, oh my gosh, so much different. I played with 2 different groups of people. I've taught 2 different groups of people, and just watching people finally get the mechanics. Like the first round, the first phase that you play, it's pretty slow and it's a drag and it's a lot of questions and some people are frustrated. But then by the time you get to like maybe halfway through round 2, start of round 3, people like start to really click with the mechanics and start to understand what's going on and see the patterns. And then, man, the daggers come out. And like, it's a fascinating thing to see some people blossom from hey, I'm gonna do this because we're cooperative, working together, and then someone says, hey, cool, can you let me do this, and say no, or they say something more dashes like, oh yeah, I can let you do that for a price. And it's like, whoa, well now, people start to really realize their leverage, and like that's really fun to kind of watch happen. especially when it comes around to voting on the legislation that comes out. Sometimes it's like, hey, so I want this legislation to pass, and some people are like, well, I don't want that to pass, and it says, okay, well, I'm gonna vote for it, and someone's like, hey, wait, before you vote for that, I can give you this. Well, these are supposed to be promise cards. I don't have the cards. I can give you my promise card that allows you to do a thing and try to bribe them. And the person's like, oh, okay, well, your promise card's fine, but you know, I need a little bit more of a thing. You know what? Actually, let me ask this other person. Like, it's like, oh, how about this promise card? I'll give you that promise card. It's like, oh, well, that one's fine, but I'd rather have more than just one. And people just like really try to like sink their claws and extort as much as they can. And it's amazing to see. Like, it's so cool. Like, it's such a cool like social experiment, in my opinion. But like I said, that comes from other people being playing the game. Playing it solo, you don't get that. I guess as much in the same way that some people say Spirit Island is. I have not played Spirit Island all the way through. And it's a board game that's on my list of digital board games that I own. I don't think I'll get it physically, at least not all of it. And some people say that when you play Spirit Island solo, you don't really get that fun interaction of synergizing with your ally. Instead, you just kind of have to do it yourself and min-max, and it's not the same. I'm assuming this is probably a similar feeling. Like, I don't really feel that dynamic, dynamism, I think that's the word I'm looking for, that dynamic between me and my opponents. And this is all just talking about the feel of the game. Now, as far as the mechanics of the game, they're pretty consistent. I mean, you just kind of do the John Company things, and then you move through your life and, you know, try to get the money where you can and make sure the company stays afloat just enough so you can actually make your profit and get out. Or if you're betting against the company, maybe don't do those things to help the company out too much. Maybe sabotage. There's a whole bunch of rules that you can play, and it's like an open world sandbox for a company, for running a company specifically. It's not like you can do whatever you want, but the fact that you can also add in the firms module. It's not a module, but the firms part of the game to where you can actually have a company inside of a company. That's really cool. And there's a whole bunch to love about this game. But all in all, as a solo game, this is not one that I'll be revisiting very often. If I do ever revisit it, like I said, if I had like a whole month off of work or something, or a whole month to do nothing, but just sit down and play board games, I might give John Company like, you know, 2 or 3 runs in that to see if I kind of still have the same feelings. Maybe it's just me not being super familiar with flipping back and forth with the pages of the bot. Maybe it gets to the point to where the bot becomes so easy that I just kind of know exactly what they're going to do. I'm not sure. It's just that it feels like there's so much input required to make the bot work, and it's like I'd rather just invite 2 friends over. You know, just wait until Friday so I can invite 2 friends over. We can play this board game, 3 players. And also, I do keep mentioning 3 players as the lowest player count that I'm willing to play as at, mainly because if you play with 2 players, you gotta play with the bot anyway, and that's still the same concept. I mean, you're splitting the bot load, if you will, but at that point, just play with 3 players and up. I'm glad that the solo bot exists. I'm glad that you can play this game with 2 players. I'm also glad you can play at other player counts. I think between 3 to 5 is my player target. I think this can play up to 6 players total. But you know, I'm always sketchy on playing games at max player count. At any rate, that's pretty much it for this whole video. I don't really have much else to say outside of it was a fun experience. It's just not one that I will revisit too often for the reasons that I mentioned before. Just too much of a fiddly bot, too much input required from my side. Not that I don't have the willpower to do so. It's just I don't feel it's worth the investment for the experience that I get. Whereas I can just go play something like Star Wars Outer Rim, and it's probably about the same amount of input required for that. But at least the bot cards are basically just do what the card says and then do your turn. So it's pretty snappy. It's a pretty smooth system for Star Wars Outer Rim, especially with the unfinished business expansion. And I'll be doing a video and play through that next. So do be on the lookout for that one. But yeah, but John Company, fantastic game for 3 to 5 players for me. Solo game, maybe not. Maybe not for me. Not for me. Just not my cup of tea. Okay, cool. So thank y'all very much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed it. And as always, I will see y'all whenever.